Hi, Valerie Dawn here. Today I'm thrilled to share how to knit this chic, flirty Barbie sweater using superfine yarn and double pointed needles. Perfect for fashion-forward dolls. For our Barbie sweater, we need 4 double pointed 2 3/4 millimeter needles and 4 2.25 millimeter double pointed needles. That's for the ribbing. A darning needle and a pair of scissors. For the yarn, we need a sock weight yarn. This is Cascade Yarn's Heritage. Now it happens to be wool, you don't have to get wool, but it does need to be a sock weight, which is like size 1 on the standards, and I'll put a link in the description below to those standards. Whenever you start a new knitting project, you need to knit a swatch so that you can measure the stitch gauge. I've knit a nice wide one here so I can get all 4 inches. You don't necessarily have to make one this big, you can make a couple inches. This measures 34 stitches to 4 inches, and that's 8.5 stitches per inch to get the same measurements that I used to make these sweaters. We start knitting this sweater along the neck edge, and that's right along here in the graph. Now, since we have this gap here for the neck edge, we're going to cast on the stitches for the right shoulder, and then with a separate piece of yarn, we're going to cast on the stitches for the left shoulder. These gray gaps are where there are no stitches because we start out with just, here 4 stitches at the top of the sleeve, and then as we increase, it gets wider. Same thing here, there's no stitches, but I've made this black so just to represent that we have a separate piece of yarn on the right from another piece of yarn on the left. They come together here on this row, which I think is row 6. And we drop the yarn B and pick up yarn A and continue to knit with just 1 piece of yarn. I'm starting with the 2.75 millimeter needles, and since I need 2 bits of yarn, I'm going to start with the yarn that's in the center of my cake and the yarn that's on the outside, and then we'll cut one of them off and continue knitting after we join at the neck. For the right shoulder, cast on 15 stitches and then pick up yarn B and cast on 13 stitches. Cast on 15 stitches. That's 15 for the right shoulder. Pick up my other piece of yarn and cast on 13 stitches on the same needle. And 13. We're working in rows, so turn your work around. This is going to be the wrong side of the work. Knit 2. That's the flap in the back of the sweater where we attach your snaps, and then purl the other 11. And 11. Okay, drop that and pick up the other yarn. And then we purl 13 and knit these 2 at the end. Alright, and that's our knit 2 at the end of that wrong side row. Turn the work around. That was row 1. Now row 2 is the right side, so with yarn A, we're going to start making stitches. So we knit 8, make 1 twice. There's 1, 2, there's 8. Now we make 1 twice. That's for the top of the sleeve. This is a raglan sleeve, and these increase stitches mark the edge of the raglan sleeve. Okay, knit 2. And that's the stitches on the sleeve, and then make 2. Make 1 in the next 2. So there's a make 1 and another make 1. And that's the other side of the sleeve and the front. Now we're going to make one left leaning right in between here. See that strand of yarn that's in between the two stitches? Pick that up and then knit the back loop of that. Alright, that makes a left leaning increase, which is for the neck edge, and then knit the last one. Pick up the other strand of yarn, and then we're going to knit one and make one that's right leaning in this thread that's right here. See that? Right there. We're going to make one stitch in there, right leaning. And we're going to pick that up. I'm going to use my right needle to help because you put it in the back to front. And then we're going to knit in the front of that. So this can be a little tight. You can use your finger to hold that stitch so it doesn't fall off. Because we're right at the start of this, and it would be a bit difficult to pick that stitch up. Alright, I'm just going to make a little space there. Put my needle right in the front. Okay, then that's a right leaning. Now we're into the increases for the front and the arm, the sleeve. So we make one in each one of the next two stitches. There's make one, make another one. Knit two, which is the top of this raglan sleeve. And then make one in each of the next two stitches. Just like that. There's one and two. And then knit six to the end of that row. That was row 1 and row 2, so now we're on row 3, which is going to be mostly purls till we get to here, and then we do a make one purl right on this side and a make one purl left on that side. So with each row we knit the first two stitches, which is our little flap on the back of the sweater where we attach snaps, and then purl all the way over. Those increased stitches can be a little bit tight. Just be careful not to drop a stitch. Can be kind of difficult to recover, especially on those increased stitches. So take your time. Okay, there's 14. That was 2 knits, 15 purls. Now we're going to do a make one purl right in this strand of yarn. So you pick that thread up back to front and then purl the front loop. All right, back to front. Purl that and then purl the last stitch. We're right at the edge there, so it's a bit tricky. All right, pick up yarn A. So we purl that first stitch and then make one purl left. Remember to hang on to it with your finger so it doesn't fall off. That's going to be that piece of yarn right there. And I want to pick it up front to back, and then I'm going to purl it in the back stitch. In the back loop. Alright, and then purl all the way across to the end and knit 2. This is shaping the neck edge. So we have a scoop around the front of the neck edge. There, we purled across to the last 2 stitches and knit those. Alright, turn around for row 4. And that will be knit 9, 7, 8, 9, Make one in the next 2 stitches. See, we're starting to form both sides of the raglan sleeve. So that make one increases the back. That make one increases one side of the sleeve. Knit 4, which is the top of the sleeve. Make one which increases the other side of the sleeve, and make one which increases the front. Okay, knit 3, which is along the front of the sweater, and then make one left. Pick that up front to back, and then knit in the back like that, and then knit one there. All right, drop yarn A, pick up yarn B. Now we knit one and make one right leaning. I gotta hang on to that stitch so it doesn't fall off. Back to front, and then knit in the front. And hang on to that. Pick that up and make a little bit of space for my needle. Go into the front and knit it just like that. Alright, and then we knit 3 for the front. Make one in each of the next 2. Knit 4. Make one in each of the next 2. And knit 7. 2, 4, 6, 7. See, we're beginning to shape the neck edge there. Row 5 is the back side, so it's straightforward. We do 2 knits and then purl 21. Okay, and there's 21. And then we are going to do our make one purl right leaning. So it's back to front and then purl into the front. And then we purl 1. Purl 1, and then we make 1 purl left in that loop right there, front to back, and purl in the back. Alright, and then purl across 23 and knit 2. That's 23, and then knit 2. I clipped yarn B. I don't need that anymore. We're going to continue the whole row with the yarn A. And this is on the right side, so we're going to knit 10, 9, 10, and then we do an increase twice, once for the back and once for the sleeve, and then across the top of the sleeve we knit 6 and 2 more increases, knit 7. Here we cast on 2 stitches, and that's going to complete our neck edge. We continue knitting on the other side with the same yarn, and that will be another knit 7. Increase twice. another knit 6 across the other sleeve, increase twice, and then we should have knit 8, which we do. Okay, the next row is a straightforward purl row with knit 2 stitches at either end, and just be careful when you come to the cast on stitches not to drop them. From here on, we are going to do rows back and forth, and on the right side we're going to increase at either side of the front, the sleeves, and the back. And on the wrong side, which are purls, we just purl straight across with 2 on either end. And we continue that to row 13, because 13 is the wrong side. So I'll just start one more of those, and you can see how we have shaped our neckline, which at the end of this, once we get the sweater put together, we're going to come back and pick up stitches around the neck edge to knit the collar in ribbing. All right, so we just continue knitting across to our increase 11, and then make 2, knit 8 across the sleeve, another make 2. All right, then we knit 18 across the front. That's 18. Now we make 2 more. Knit 8 across the sleeve, the other sleeve. Make 2. And then just knit to the end of the row. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Let's just see how that's shaping up. These 2 stitches at the end, those will overlap in the back for snaps. This is the back, and then you can see the increases starting for the sleeve, the raglan sleeve, where you have 2 little increased purl type stitches on either side and 1 single knit up the center. That's the increase. This is the top of the right sleeve, and that's the other increase side. This is shaping up as the front of the sweater, and then we have the left sleeve and the back. So continue those 2 rows to row, what did I say, it was 13, which is a purl row, the wrong side row. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to slip these stitches onto threads for the sleeves, the 2 sleeves, and after that we're going to continue working in the round. Now we're finished that row 13, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 increases. Now we begin row 14, and that is knit 3 together. And see what that's going to do, that little flap in the back, it's going to pull that in so that can fit behind the other side, and we can add a little snap right here. So knit 3 together. Now sometimes you have to kind of wiggle those so it's easier to get your needle in there. I think I got it this time. Right, knit 3 together, knit 11. 1, 2, 10, 11. And that brings us to the edge of the sleeve. And then we slip the next 18 stitches onto a holder. Let me just count them and make sure we're in the right place. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. I have just cut some short strands of ivory colored yarn, And so I'm just going to start slipping that through each of these 18 stitches and pull it all the way through. There's 1 and 2 and 18. Just take that thread and tie the 2 ends together in a little knot so the stitches don't fall off. We're going to come back later and pick those stitches up and finish knitting the sleeve. Alright, now just tuck that out of the way and continue knitting. Knit 24 for the front of the body. And just snug your yarn into pretty good there. We don't increase any on this sweater. Just keep going. 24, 1, 23, and 24. Okay, take the other little thread and slip these next 18 stitches onto it. And again, we'll tie this thread in a knot so it doesn't slip out. All right, and then we knit 12 along here. (11) and 12. For the remainder of the sweater body, we're going to knit in rounds, and that means we need to divide these 48 stitches among 3 needles. So I'm just going to put 16 stitches on each of my 3 needles. So grab your other 2 3/4 millimeter needles and count 16. 1, 2. There's 16 on the first needle. And then I go 16 on the second needle. And just check we have 16 on here. So we have this divided across our 3 needles. Now just bring it around in a circle with the right side facing you. This is the center back, and make sure your yarn is snug. We're going to just start knitting in rounds. Now put these needles whatever position makes you feel most comfortable. There's 16 on my first needle. Now you'll be able to tell where the end of the round is because you've got the opening in the back, so you really don't need a stitch marker because it'll be obvious where your round starts. Hold it a bit snug so you don't end up with a gap here on these stitches when you go from one needle to the next. There's 16, and then we just knit the stitches off that third needle. Again, pull it kind of snug. That's 15 and 16 on my third needle, and then I come to the end of the round again. Now you'll notice that thread's kind of loose. Don't be concerned about that. As we knit the next rounds, that will close up. So again, just pull your yarn snug and continue knitting in rounds. And we're going to knit 11 rounds till we're from around 15 to 25, keeping the 48 stitches. And once we finish knitting those 11 rounds for the body, we're going to reduce the size of the needles and switch to ribbing. And we'll also decrease 4 stitches to snug the ribbing in. All right, so go ahead and finish those rounds and we'll be back. Now that we have those 11 rounds finished, we're going to switch to the ribbing along the bottom, and we're going to use the 2.25 millimeter double pointed needles. So set those four right ready to pick up, and we decrease 4 stitches on this first round, and we're going to knit through back loop to give the knit stitches a little twist. Pick up your 2.25 millimeter needle and begin with a purl 1, knit 1 through back loop twice. All right, and then purl 2 together, knit 1 through back loop, and then purl 1, knit 1 through back loop 5 times. So that's 10 stitches of ribbing. 9. Okay, set your larger needle aside and pick up the next 2.25 millimeter. Don't forget to do that. And this is a knit through back loop. Right, now purl 2 together, knit 1 through back loop, and rib another 10 stitches. Okay, that's rib 10, and then purl 2 together, put that needle aside and pick up another one of your 2.25, and we do a knit through back loop, and rib 10. Right, and then finish up with purl 2 together, knit 1 through back loop, purl 1, and knit 1 through back loop, and that's the end of the round. Set that needle aside, and from here to the for all of the ribbing, you're going to use the 2.25 millimeter needles. On the second ribbing row, it's simply a purl 1, knit 1 all the way around. We don't twist it on this in between rows. That's just the look I really like, is every second row is twisted. It's your choice if you want to knit them all without twisting them, or you can knit every round with the knits twisted. All right, that's 2 rounds of ribbing, and continue on so that you have a total of 7 rounds of ribbing, including the first round where we did our decrease. So there's 2, we'll have 5 more rounds of ribbing. Every second round you want to twist the knit stitches, or knit through back loop to twist them like that. Okay, and I'll be back once I get the 7 rounds of ribbing completed. Now we have 7 rows of ribbing. Just so that the bind off is not too tight, let's set the 2 1/4 aside, and we'll use a 2.75 millimeter needle to bind off. And we just do that in ribbing. I like to use the twisted ribbing to bind off. I think it just looks a little tidier, but you do bind off in the rib stitch, just like this, and keep it in ribbing. So purl the purls and knit the knits. But like I said, I like to knit through the back stitch. Bind off like this all the way around this round, and then I'll show you how to attach it at the other end so it blends into the start of the beginning stitch. I finished the bind off all the way around. Now you see how when you come to the end of the row, it kind of doesn't match. So I'll show you how to blend this in. Just take your needle and put it through that very first stitch and just pick up one stitch right there and bind that off as well. Okay, so just do a bind off on that stitch so that it's connected right to that very first stitch. Snip your yarn off right there and just pull it all the way through like this. Alright, now you can take a darning needle and just sew that in at the back of the work so it looks nice and tidy. Now we're going to move on to the sleeves. The sleeves are really straightforward. We're going to go back and pick up the 18 stitches, divide them on 3 needles, so that'll be 6 stitches each, and then we will knit 25 rounds. And after that we're going to do another 7 rows of ribbing like we did at the bottom. So let's pick these up. I'm going to take a pair of scissors and snip that knot, and then just carefully pick up the stitches. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I like to put my needle in before I pull the yarn out. There's 6. Okay, and another 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and then 6 more. 4. Okay, I'm going to pull this yarn out, and you'll notice my stitches have receded a little bit. I'll just use that to pull them up. There's stitch number 5. And there. Now I can discard that. All right, so I have my 18 stitches on 3 needles. Make sure you're using the 2.75 millimeter needles and just attach the yarn. We're working at the underarm, and you can kind of tuck that into the inside so it's out of the way. We'll stitch all these threads in at the end and just start knitting in the round. Make sure you leave a long enough end. There. Just be careful your needle doesn't slip out and drop all the stitches. Our 3rd needle. Alright, we're around to the start of the round again, so we're just going to pull this closed with our yarn. We'll sew that up later with that end that we left here. This is round 2. Once you get it set up and you get all the 18 stitches and the round joined, it gets pretty straightforward and goes pretty quick to finish those 25 rounds because there's not very many stitches here. Okay, that's our 3rd needle. Again, I don't think you need a marker because you can tell you're at the start of the round because you're at the underarm. And this will be our 3rd round. Okay, I'm just going to pull that snug. I'm going to finish the 25 rounds and then I'll be back. Once you knit 25 rounds on the sleeve, we're going to switch to the 2.25 millimeter needle and do the same as we did for the bottom of the sweater, but we are not going to decrease any stitches. we're just going to do a, we'll start with a purl. Purl 1, knit 1 through back loop, all the way around. And then on the second round, we'll do the regular knit. We won't knit through back loop. And we do that for 7 rounds. And there I have my sleeve, my cuff, and we're just going to use the larger needle again to bind off so these stitches aren't too tight. And so we do just like we did for the back. And bind off in ribbing. So there's a purl, a knit 1 through back loop, and bring the stitch over all the way around. Okay, we're all the way around the cuff. Okay, so see, there's where our beginning of the round was. My stitch is twisted there. So just pick up that first stitch. All right, bind that off. Snip the yarn and pull through. There we go. Finish the other sleeve the same, and then we'll be back and I'll show you how to pick up the stitches all the way around the neckline. All right, we've finished the body and both sleeves. I tied in a few ends around the ribbing, but I've left the ends around the neck. We'll tie them in after we get the neck sewn, because it's if we tie them in now, it might make it harder to pick up the stitches around the edge. We do this with the 2.25 millimeter needles. I only need 2 of them. We're going to pick up a stitch in each one of these original cast-on stitches. By the time we get here, our aim is to have about 20 or 21 stitches because we want 41 around the whole neck. Grab your yarn and pull that end out of the way. We're going to pick up a stitch. That looks like our first stitch. So pull that around your needle and pull it through there. That's the end we leave there. There's 1, 2, 9, 10, and then we'll pick one up there. That's 11. I'm gonna put right in there. It can be hard to pick that up, pull it through. I think that's 12. There, I got it. 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, we'll put one in right here. See that? We're gonna we'll sew that in later. What's that? 17, 18, 19. Okay, there's 20. I'm halfway there. And there's that other cast on stitch. $21. And we're going to try and do the same thing up the other side. 21, 29, 30, 31, 40, and one more right there in the very end. 41. I like to have an odd number so that this is ribbing, so that each end starts with like a knit or a knit through back loop. Now we can start ribbing. So we'll turn it around, and this is the wrong side. So we're going to start with a purl, and on this side we're going to do purl, knit 20 times, and then end with a purl at the end. There's only 4 rows of ribbing, so this shouldn't take us long, but we do have a few decreases just to make the neckband come in snug around the top of the neck. So let's get going on this. So this is a straightforward purl knit. No, don't worry about knitting through back loop. This is just purl knit. Now take your time on this row, because if one of these stitches slip off, it's going to be tricky to pick it up again. All right, so there you go, purl knit across the row, and that's the end of the first ribbing row. Turn your work around, and the next row we simply do a knit 1 through back loop, purl 1 across the row, and then end with a knit 1 through back loop. All right. Again, be careful not to drop a stitch. It's a bit difficult to recover from those picked up stitches. We're coming to the end of our second ribbing row, and there we go. All right, turn it around. This is the wrong side of the ribbing again. We're going to do a decrease right here. So we rib 6, purl 2 together, purl 1, knit 1, and we repeat that whole ribbing and decrease 4 times. Don't need to worry about knit through back loop on the wrong side. 6. Here's where we purl 2 together. Oops. And then do a purl 1 and a knit 1. So we have eliminated that knit in between. When you look at the right side, there'll be 2 knits together. We repeat that whole thing again. So we did that once, we do that 3 more times. So rib 6, purl 2 together, and then purl 1, knit 1. And repeat that again. Rib 6, purl 2 together, purl 1, and knit 1. And one more time. Rib 6, purl 2 together, purl 1, knit 1, and then we end the row with that last purl 1. All right, we have one more ribbing row. Make sure none of these slide off your needle. Okay, so because we did the purls on the other side, you'll see there's one where we removed the purl. It still maintains the ribbing look. And on this row, we're going to do a stitch called a slip 1, knit 1 PSSO. And so it's going to be like a left leaning knit stitch, and they will be coordinated with the stitches that we did the decrease on the previous row. We'll do our rib 3. On this side we do it at the knit through back loop. So 1, 2, 3. Now this is where we do, see, that was where we did our knit 2 together. Slip that one onto the left needle, knit this one, and pass that slip stitch over top of it. And then we rib 4. And then we do that whole section 4 times over. So we go back through again and do our knit 1 through back loop, purl 1. We did the knit 1 through back loop, the purl 1, and a knit 1 through back loop. Now we're at the same place as our last knit 2 together, or purl 2 together from the previous row. So slip that, knit, and pass that slip stitch over. And then we do the rib 4. 3 and 4, and then we repeat that 2 more times. So I'll take the 2.75 millimeter needle to bind off, and I will bind off in ribbing, and it'll look the same as these stitches here. Bind my scissors, snip that yarn, and this one I'm going to pull through here. Okay, there you go. Now, to finish our sweater, we're going to get a tapestry needle and sew in our loose threads. It's a little easier to sew these in if you turn them inside out. Just grab your tapestry needle, thread that. Now, I just like to weave it through a bit. Do a little slip knot like that, and then maybe weave it back. That's enough to hold these. And then snip it off. All right, and then there's just 2 or 3 other little threads there to sew in, and then we'll put a snap on. Final step before we attach the snap. I don't generally block these little sweaters. I don't find they need them. They're just tiny. And you know how this, at the end of the rows, has a tendency to curl up. I just get a little steam iron. And be careful what you're doing if you're working with synthetic yarn, because nylons and synthetics can melt. So be very careful. This is wool and nylon, so it's got more heat tolerance. I just take a little wet cloth and apply some heat just so that will lay flat for me, and do that on both sides. Our final step is to just find a bit of matching thread and a small crafting snap, and stitch the snaps on the neck edge right here. I've sewn the snap on each side. It's time to dress Barbie. Here's our completed sweaters modeled by our lovely Barbies. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I have a link in the description below if you'd like to download the pattern. It is in 2 sizes. The blue one we just finished, the turquoise one, is the small, and the red one is the large size. It's just a looser fit sweater. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.